All right, well, welcome everyone for Branding Essentials, creating and placing and protecting your brand with Zack Barton here today. Glad you could join us for this webinar. Before we get started, we have a couple things to go over real quick. If you have any questions during the meeting, definitely go ahead and put that in the chat. We'll try to get those as we have time or as it's relevant. Throughout today, and then just a little bit about the Shasta-Cascade Small Business Development Center. So we provide confidential, no-cost advisory services, as well as low to no-cost training service as well, such as this webinar. So our regional network, we're a program of the Cal Poly Humboldt Sponsored Programs Foundation, and then our center here in Reading, we are our host is the Siskiyou Economic Development Council. Our primary funders are the Small Business Administration, as well as the Governor's Office for California. So they're kind of the reason how we're able to do this for businesses. And then some of our local experts here. So we do serve Shasta, Trinity, and Siskiyou counties here in Northern California. There are other SBDCs that serve other counties in the United States. We'll get into that towards the end of this webinar where you can find out where those are. But yeah, we have a lot of different advisors with different specialties, whether it's startup, HR, QuickBooks, accounting, finding money, general business advice, SEO, etc. And then we also have access to other advisors in the Northern California region, in addition to our local ones here. All right, and then I'll have to read this disclaimer before we get going. The information provided in this webinar and any supplementary materials provided to registrants are intended for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute professional, financial, or legal advice. No registrant should act or fail to act on the basis of any material contained in this webinar without obtaining proper financial, legal, or other professional advice specific to their situation. The Northern California Small Business Development Center and its host, the Cal Poly Humboldt Sponsored Programs Foundation, as well as the Siskiyou Economic Development Council, specifically disclaims any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence, directly or indirectly, of the use and application of any of the information presented in this webinar. And I did also want to mention that we are going to be giving everyone a copy of this slide deck, as well as a link to this recording as well. So you will have that after the presentation. All right, so I'll go ahead and hand it over to our presenter, Zack Barton.
Thanks so much, Emily. Just a really quick slide about who you are hearing from before we get going here. So my name is Zack Barton. I have 19 years of professional experience in web design, development, marketing, branding. I worked roughly 6 years at a boutique agency and then 4 years for a large internet retailing company in San Jose. And then kind of spun off and started Barton Interactive in January of 2014 and have done that since and kind of built up a team around myself. I had the privilege of serving clientele small and large and still do, including Eddie Bauer, Wet Seal, Wells Fargo, Vitamin Shop, T-Mobile, Ely, Tahari, Skechers, and more. Just a really quick agenda / outline so you have an idea of like what are we, if you're like me, you want to wrap your head around what are we about to get into, what is this going to look like. So we're doing some introduction right now, but we're going to have some brief definitions like what is a brand, what is branding, what is brand identity, just so we're all on the same page with that. But we're not going to harp on that too long unless people have questions. And by the way, it doesn't look like we have a gigantic turnout. So my preference would be to keep this conversational. As Emily mentioned, if you have a question, definitely drop it in the chat. If I need to pause and catch my breath and take a drink of water, which is good to do sometimes, maybe we'll try to sneak some of those in. But if not, or if we run out of time, we'll definitely have some time designated for that at the end. But after definitions, the meat of the presentation is going to be, okay, well, now that we know what branding is, what are the steps that can be taken? And we're going to spend time on naming a little bit of time on naming, not a ton. But we have great resources if you are still in that process, that part of the process. And then creating a great logo, this is going to be the meat of where we camp out here for this presentation, and we're going to break down what we believe makes a great logo. So some or most or maybe all of those things will probably be helpful to you in some way. Like I said, we'll wrap up and have time for Q&A at the end if there's any questions that we aren't able to get to as we go. So what is our objective? What we're trying to do here is we want to give you an understanding of the basics of branding, why it's important, how to get started, and things to think about with your company's name, the logo, colors, overall message, and tone. We'll have time for questions. I know we say in here, write them down as you have them. I would say just throw them in the chat. Emily's going to kind of help manage that. And if we can, we'll take some of those as we go. I'd love to keep this conversational if we can. So, all right, you guys ready? Let's go ahead and dive in. So first of all, what is branding? Some people know real well what that is. Some people have no clue. Some are somewhere in the middle. And this is a popcorn shop right down the street from our office. We used to have an office in downtown Reading. Then we had one in Reading and Ohio once my family moved back home to Ohio, and now we just have our office in Ohio. So this may look unfamiliar to you, but this is a big famous popcorn shop. Sounds silly, but this place is famous locally. And you're going to see some examples like that from around town. But what is branding? These guys have a lot of interesting branding stuff going on. So branding is the process of creating an identity for your brand, establishing who you are as a business or organization, helping differentiate your brand from others. Your brand identity will communicate, hopefully, and hopefully in a good way, core values about your company or your organization to clients or customers, giving them a picture of what you stand for and how you will interact with them. Your brand identity will be communicated through your things like your brand name, logo, colors you use, the tone that you communicate in, and more. Some primary functions of brands: they help consumers choose from a bewildering array of choices. What if every single soap company had no label, no packaging, no brand name? What if they're all just in plastic bags or something, right? It would be pretty hard to tell them apart, right? So brands communicate the intrinsic quality of the product or service and reassure customers that they have made the right choice. Brands use distinctive imagery, language, and associations to encourage customers to identify with the brand. Just a quick definition I liked from Merriam-Webster. So it's a public image, reputation, or identity conceived of as something to be marketed or promoted. An example would be the comedian Dane Cook apparently believes he is building his brand by pumping out a steady stream of comments on Twitter. And I liked this quote, and I love this book. If you are a book reader and you want to get a great book on branding and brand identity, I highly recommend this one right here. As competition creates infinite choices, companies look for ways to connect emotionally with customers, become irreplaceable, and create lifelong relationships. A strong brand stands out in a densely crowded marketplace. People fall in love with brands and they trust them and believe in their superiority. How a brand is perceived affects its success, regardless of whether it's a startup, a nonprofit, or a product. So I made this really quick comparison slide. So here's a brand on the left, right? You don't know what's in that building. You have no idea, but there's a company in there. That's their brand, right? You don't know who's in there. We don't know. The one on the right, that's their branding. That's their brand identity. You can see their company name, maybe even a couple of companies in there. I should know I photoshopped that, but company name, logo, colors, typography, design, packaging, tagline. Yeah, I mean, you know, chime in. Do you guys see a huge difference here between the left and the right? To me, I'm getting so much information just from the imagery that I'm seeing there in that second photo. And one more example along those lines would be brand on the left, who is it? We don't know. It doesn't matter. Who cares? It's a big building. Second one, oh my gosh, it's Morton Salt. You can see their company name, their logo, their colors, typography, design, packaging. I mean, it comes to life all of a sudden, right? So huge difference. Brand identity from Investopedia, which love their site. The visible elements of a brand, such as color, design, logo, that identify and distinguish the brand in consumers' minds. So building a brand identity is a multidisciplinary strategic effort, not just, some kid in a basement whipping up something in Photoshop in 5 minutes, right? Hopefully. And every element should support the overall message and business goals. In another quote from that book that I mentioned loving so much, brand identity is tangible and appeals to the senses. You can see it, touch it, hold it, hear it. You can watch it move. Brand identity fuels recognition, amplifies differentiation, and makes big ideas and meaning accessible. I hear some people say that a brand it's the silent ambassador. It's like if you're not there with a business card in hand, ready to make an elevator pitch to every single person who sees your company's signage or ads or whatever, hopefully at least your logo and colors and typography and everything speak, hopefully, in a really good way to that person, right? Finish the quote, brand identity takes disparate elements and unifies them into whole systems. So if you haven't already gotten why I think it's important, why is branding important? Here are some fundamentals. You can set your brand apart from competitors, create a distinct culture around who you are and what you offer and how you offer it, create a lasting first impression, make your brand easily identifiable. Those are really good things. In this quick example, we were in New York City a month or two ago, and we have a friend that lives there in Manhattan, and he said, you have to get Joe's Pizza while you're here. I'm thinking, okay, cool. I'm going to take my wife and my kid to get Joe's Pizza. It'll be awesome. So no problem. I just open up my phone and type in Joe's Pizza NYC. Like about 7.5 million results. Oh man, I thought this was going to be easy, anyways, so I had to do a little bit more detective work, and we figured it out. But if the brand logo was there, that would have allowed me to see something that was instantly recognizable. I would have figured it out in about 2 seconds as opposed to 2 minutes. Here I am, first world problems, right? But just a funny example for you. Looks like oh, good morning, Keisha. Thanks for chiming in. Appreciate it. So in branding, you build reliability in the eyes of others by showing you are a well-established company or organization. That's huge in itself, right? How many times have you seen a logo and you instantly perceive, whether it correctly or incorrectly, hey, that company is really well established, or wow, that company must be brand new, or oof, that company doesn't know what they're doing, right? Don't those thoughts go through your head? I know they do with me. My wife gets on me because I will almost judge a restaurant by the font that they chose for their signage. Shame on me, but I can't help it. I went to design school. That's what I do. But so attract new customers or clients by becoming more memorable and differentiated from competitors. Here's a really quick example. These are both in our in Cleveland, where I'm at, Greater Cleveland, Ohio. These are both serving, believe it or not, these are two different businesses. The one on the right, you've probably heard of, Crate and Barrel. This is the store by us. This is about 10 or 15 minutes from me right now. The store on the left, I will not name names, but they are about 5 minutes up the street. Believe it or not, these both serve the same clientele, and their items are probably around the same dollar amount. Isn't that shocking? The one to the left, though, boy, just the appearance there, it's nothing like the appearance on the right. And in the appearance on the left, I'm kind of expecting a really good deal, right? I'm kind of expecting to pay almost garage sale prices for really, really expensive antiques and vintage items. So I know that's a little bit different than Crate and Barrel. Crate and Barrel is a little bit more modern, but Crate and Barrel, I look at that building and I instantly think, all right, how much is it going to cost me? And so just that alone, that visual, how important is that? How powerful is that, right? A couple more things on why branding is important. 75% of people recognize a brand by its logo. Logo color makes up 90% of the consumer's first impression. The human brain, this one's wild to me. The human brain can process images 60,000 times faster than words. That's why most businesses select visual branded logos. That's just so wild to me. So now that we've gotten through all of the definitions and intro stuff, the question here, the $1 million question would be, what steps can I take to create, I would say, a successful brand identity? Are you guys awake? Are you guys with me? Should we see what the answer is? Let's find out. So there are a couple of things that you can do. And it looks like people are chiming in. Thanks so much, Eric. Appreciate it. So research, research, it's actually important. And don't mean to say that like you didn't know that, but you may not have known that. Some of the people that I work with don't know that. But making a list of your competitors. Oh my gosh, I never even thought about that. Some people don't ever think about making a list of their competitors. We have folders and folders and folders of competitors for everybody that we work with. And I would recommend that for you as well, because you want to know how high they set the bar, right? And what that target audience is expecting, right? How high is the bar set? Is it low? Well, that's good news for you. But if it's high, it means you probably have some work to do, right, to keep up. And that goes for website, logo, everything. So what do you think of their logos? Are you impressed with their promotional literature? In other words, business card, brochures, flyers, billboards, that kind of stuff. Does their website design accurately reflect their brand? Does it seem like it would be successful to you? Naming your brand. You're going to see some cheesy photos from around our office here. But a few things that a good brand name will do: identify the type of service or product you offer, help customers or clients remember you, engage your audience emotionally. You can do all these just with the actual name of your company. So before they even see a logo, distinguish you from your competitors. Now, I'm going to pause for a second and just say, if you are in that spot of, actually, can you just either raise your hand or chime into the chat? Hey, I'm actually working on a company name right now. If so, I'll spend another minute or two hovering on this. And if not, we're just going to zoom past it. Looks like we have some people chiming in here. Okay, thanks so much. Emily is dropping in some helpful resources. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Kelsey's got a name. Eric's working on it. Perfect. Okay. So here are some resources that I think have been helpful. I was talking to Emily before we started, and was just saying, man, these PDFs, honestly, I've been using them for almost 20 years. That's how good they are. And no affiliation. This is not my company. No connection to the companies that created these. I've hung on to them because I think they're that darn good. So this one breaks down the different types of brand names and the pros and cons of them. And so that's just excellent. It's created by a company that just does brand names. That's all they do. And then a few worksheets from another company, I believe Wow Branding. I think they're in Toronto, but I could be wrong. They are just killer. And so if you're coming up with a brand name, these are fun exercises that you can do to help you in that process. Even if you don't end up landing on it for sure, using these worksheets and that PDF, I think they'll be really helpful to you in your journey of that. So, okay. Obviously picking the right tone and colors and and typography. And so you want to make these things, you don't want to pick them at random. You want them to be true to how you want your audience to perceive you. Okay. You don't want to be like, well, I like the color blue, so we're going to go with blue. I've seen so many companies do that. And sometimes that's okay. And sometimes I don't think it's okay. Choose words too that align with this in every medium of communication you have with clients and customers. Think about when you're at McDonald's, if you ever go there. I don't go there, but we'll just pretend I do. What kind of wording are they using? Fun, probably bold, but lowercase, friendly, some funny words. That's the tone that they're using, right? Their branding is even coming out in that kind of messaging. That's wonderful. They do a good job of that, you have to admit. Communicating with a consistent tone will build credibility and create connection by helping your audience get to know your brand. Now, this is going to be the meat of the presentation, creating a great logo. So hopefully this is, most or all of you will enjoy this, and hopefully you're working on this, or at least will, glean some goodies from this. This is the meat of the presentation, creating a good logo. So your brand's logo, I did mention this. I think it's the silent ambassador of your company. I've heard that. I like it. I like to say that. So what is it saying about you? This is a bowling alley downtown, in a clothing company right next to it, and those do very well. But what makes a logo great? So if you need to create a logo, we talked just for a second on naming. This isn't really a naming presentation. This is more of a design focused presentation. But if you're creating a logo, or if you're thinking about fine tuning your logo or redesigning it altogether, what makes it great? So we have 15 criteria here that we're going to go through. All right. And we're going to use those to judge logos. We're going to show you some examples. And in my opinion, the more of these 15 criteria that apply to the logo that you're making, or that you may already have, the greater its likelihood for success and longevity. And I will say that I love this concept, and I really have stuck to it for years, but I also think that it's almost impossible, if not completely impossible, to nail all 15 of these criteria. It would be incredibly hard to pull that off, and the biggest, best brands and logos that I can think of don't actually check all of them. So know that, and don't beat yourself up if you don't pass all of these already, if you have a logo. But these are solid, these are helpful, okay? So here we go. And just so you know, just a plug for this book, no affiliation, but a lot of this, I would say not all, a lot of it, but a good chunk of this is inspired from this excellent book that I've been using for a long time, Designing Logos by Jack Gernsheimer. Sorry, Jack. So again, if you're really wanting to buckle down and get serious about logo design, I really recommend this book, and you're going to see some similarities in here with that. I did glean a few things, okay? Not everything, but some things. Enough for me to want to give a plug. So number one, a great logo would be aesthetically pleasing. Well, yeah, that's kind of hard to quantify, right? But if you do a simple survey with friends and coworkers, at a minimum, and hopefully honest ones, it's pretty important for them to be honest here. But do they like looking at it? Do you like the way it looks? Do they like the way it looks? I mean, to some it would be like, well, it goes without saying, and to others it'd be like, oh, I never thought that actually looked nice. It should never be a nice looking logo. Do your peers like it? Is it as good or better than your competition? This is us working on a logo design a year or two ago. Here are some logos that I'm like, oh yeah, that's a nice looking logo. Number two, is it conceptually focused and clear? What does that mean? So whether your logo majors on your brand name or the brand symbol, it should help communicate the big idea. I'm going to show you some examples that you want to broadcast about your company. Okay, what do you most want to broadcast about your company to the people that you may or may not ever be able to chance to give your elevator pitch to? Is your big idea coming through? So this is a photo we took of a business down the street. This is a logo on another business. They're serving a certain type of custard, a very well known to our little area, the Cleveland area. Euclid Beach was just super famous, super huge. Its heyday was in the 60s, 70s. Everybody from that era talks about it and loves it. So for this, this entryway of the Euclid Beach is iconic locally, and although I don't find this logo super aesthetically pleasing, it hits a home run conceptually. Okay, that was a mouthful. In-N-Out Burger, enough said. Shopify, same thing. 1-800-Flowers. You look at it, you automatically get an idea of what the company does. How helpful is that? You want yours to do that too, if you can. Number three, clever and unique. So some logos just aren't clever or unique, really. But a unique logo would show that you're a unique company. Maybe that you're thoughtful, that you're intelligent. You may be one of 100 bakeries selling cakes in your city, but maybe no one makes or sells cakes quite like you. So how does your logo reflect what makes you stand out from your competitors? Here's a shop right down the street from our office. I don't think that this is aesthetically pleasing. I don't mean to sound like a snot when I say that either. I think the store is really cool. But the thing is it clever and unique? In my humble opinion, absolutely. Absolutely. You see that once and you don't forget it. So this is clever. You know, you got the really friendly French fry M thing going on with the McDonald's logo. Pirelli. I remember the first time I saw this logo, my jaw almost hit the floor. I thought, what? Those guys have guts. But how unique, right? You see it once and you don't forget it. So, you know, bravo. Red Bull, I don't drink it, but man, that is a unique logo, right? Okay, number 4 has an aha moment. So logos with surprise imagery or hidden meanings are more memorable. Raise your hand if you chime in, I should say, if you know about the hidden arrow in the FedEx logo. We're going to show you in a second. Some people know about it, some people don't. I'll keep reading while I wait for you guys to chime in. But so, for example, FedEx has a hidden arrow in the EX symbolizing their fast, direct delivery service. It's so smart. I love it. I'll show you in a second. Amazon also has the arrow pointing from A to Z. I think it also looks like a smiley face in order to symbolize that they sell literally everything. But what can people discover in your logo? Is there any kind of aha moment that you could put in your logo? Has anybody seen this? The FedEx arrow? Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Right there. And then the Amazon A to Z. To me, I always saw a smiley face there. I had to read about it having the A to Z thing going on. So yes, Kelsey, never thought of those. Aren't those wild? And now you're not going to forget those, right? So those are fun aha moments. I wouldn't put that at the top of the list, but boy, if you can make that happen, that's major bonus points, right? Okay, scales and size. Thanks for chiming in. Scales and size. Well, so this one, it's pretty simple, but I've heard people say when I say this, well, what do you mean? Don't all logos scale and size? Well, I don't think so. And I'll show you some examples. Oh, are you creating the logo? Is someone creating it for you? Are you only looking at it on your computer? If so, I would say, hey, if you can, we were taught in design school, you want your logo to look good on everything from a ballpoint pen all the way to a billboard, right? Just in everything in between. Does the thing scale? I'll show you some examples. This might not be the best example, but from over here, I'm having a hard time with this logo on the left. These other two maybe seem like they're okay. Obviously, these are blown up a lot larger to be, this is right down the street from us, but to be, this is not like they're looking at it on their computer screen. They're like, no, we need a logo signage above our entryway of our building, on the facade of our building. This one, I think that's tough. That maybe that's just the way it was designed. But so those are probably not the best examples. But AP, now this is a love them or hate them or neutral. AP, this is a great example of a logo that is specifically designed to look great at any size. I'm going to show you an example. This is, I think I was probably on Facebook News when I saw this example and thought, I have to copy that. So here we have this little tiny AP logo. Look at how tiny it is. It's the size of a little like or heart icon and emoji. And you can still read it crystal clear. Your thoughts of that company aside, positive, negative, neutral, just look at how scalable that is, right? Isn't that pretty cool? And then rooters, now you would look at this and you would think there's no way that would squeeze down into that logo, can it? That's correct. When I first saw this, I thought, well, that's a good comparison contrast kind of a slide. Boy, I have excellent eyesight. But in these glasses, these are just blue blockers, to be honest with you. Or else I get headaches from looking at screens all day. But so this little tiny rooters icon, I actually like their logo. I do. I think it's great. But man, that does not scale in size well, in my humble opinion. Okay. Number 6, works in one color and no color. All right. So full color printing, it's not always available. And if you're a business owner, if you've been a business owner for a while, you probably found that out in year 1. So is your logo, is it recognizable in black and white? How about grayscale, which is just slightly different? An example would be, you might think, well, we need to advertise. We have our business, now we need to advertise. Where are you advertising? That may not be a place that allows for full color, right? So, and that's why a lot of logos are built for one color or no color, things like that. And we'll get into some examples here in a moment. But can it look okay in a black and white newspaper ad? How about a return shipping label or even a clothing label? These are all things that I personally have worked with brands and you know, kind of grappling with. They can be real challenges. And it looks like Eduardo is chiming in. Any opinion on minimalist logos with no type, the Apple logo versus logo types that spell out company names? My logo is stylized as A after my last name, but I'm on the fence about including the whole word as we don't have much recognition yet. So Eduardo asked that question, and I think that's an excellent question. Thanks so much for chiming in. In my humble opinion, brands that can pull off going that minimal are global household name type brands. If you have a global household name type brand type budget, then I would consider it more than if you have more of a shoestring budget or just a kind of a startup-y kind of a budget. And I would say that the same thing also applies to really, really wacky business names. I think companies like Yahoo or Google or GoDaddy, those guys can have these really, you know, creative, kind of almost bizarre business names. And I think the same thing applies to minimalist logos with no type at all, because their budgets are so crazy big. They're able to plaster their branding everywhere. And so people don't really have a choice but to pick up on it. And then it's almost a benefit or an asset that it's like a flex, you know, that they're able to get away with something so minimal or wacky. But in my opinion, I would probably, at least for starters, be a little bit more descriptive with your logo if you're just starting out. I hope that's helpful. Let me know. So how would your logo look? I'll continue while I wait to hear back, but how would your logo look on a black and white receipt, right? So if your business needs to send a receipt or an invoice, maybe companies at least would be printing it out. Would it look okay, or you know, would it not? So to make sure that it will work, some logo designers, did you know this? They'll actually prefer to begin with a black and white version. I'm going to say that again. Sometimes if you work with a logo designer, they're going to say, we want to start in black and white. And this is why right here. Okay. And I think that's excellent. They want to make sure, hey, make sure this thing is solid even before we add color to it. This is an award we received working with one of our clients quite a while back. But this is just a quick example, another photo from our office, because we have a ton of them. And this is, the company is eTail. I don't think it's the prettiest logo on the planet. I don't, but I do think that they're an excellent company and they do a very good job of what they do. But my point here is the thing has no color whatsoever. It is simply etched into a piece of glass, and you can still read it, at least when you're here in person, crystal clear. And so I think that they did a good job in that regard. Bank of America, our business uses them for banking. How does it look in black and white? It looks just fine. This is how it looks. When you get one of those Bank of America receipts, you have no trouble telling exactly what this is. Totally works. Remax, my company is a real estate agent. Excuse me, my wife's a real estate agent. And so they have all sorts of paperwork constantly that is just printed out in black and white. So any logos of their companies need to work in black and white. Absolutely mandatory. Here is, and Eduardo mentioned the Apple logo. How about this? Does this work in black and white? What do you guys think? Any thoughts on this as I take a breath and a sip of water? I'm going to give you just a couple more seconds to chime in. Okay, we'll see if anybody chimes in, but here are my thoughts on this. So we have this, oh, here we go. Okay, what do we have? So Keisha thinks, yes, it works. And I think it works too. I mean, it's a cool logo. I mean, nobody can deny how iconic the Apple logo is, period. But I would say that, and thanks for chiming in, Keisha. I would say that in black and white, it doesn't look so good, right? All I did was desaturate the color in Photoshop. I didn't try to make it look bad or anything. I just pulled out the color. And it makes me wonder if that's why they ended up going away from this specific coloring in their logo. And I could be wrong. I'll have to research that. Maybe next time we do this, I'll actually have the answer. But I think that maybe this one thing led to another. And they're like, oh, good grief. You know, it's so hard for us to keep this logo looking consistent on every single thing we print. And this just looks really weird. So we're just going to knock it out and make it solid gray, or maybe make it solid black. I'm guessing that that's what happened. Okay, number 7, stands the test of time. So this is one that you might not have thought of. If your logo is brand new, we would encourage you to live with it before it goes live for like at least minimum a month or 2. I know that sounds crazy and painful, but that'll allow you time to see it with fresh eyes, so to speak, to make sure that it doesn't start to feel boring or weak or ugly or weird, or you're seeing something different in it. So does it stand the test of time? Do you think it still will look good and work well in a month from now? Or how about 6 months? How about 6 years? Standing the test of time is a good thing. Here's a business down the street from us, Chagrin Hardware. These guys have been around for ages, literally since 1857. And I'm thankful that they've never changed their logo. That would be really weird if they changed their logo. Everybody loves these guys. And they're like a local icon in our little downtown area. As funny as that seems, it would be such a shame if they try to chase some design trend, right? You want it to stand the test of time. This, I believe, is the oldest still in use logo around. If someone knows better, feel free to correct me, but I'm pretty sure that the Stella Artois logo is the oldest logo that's still being used today. At least that's what I read. So beer drinker or not, that's an interesting fact, and that's wild. That is crazy to me. Pepsi, opposite. I was shocked when they started redesigning their logo. They did it a few times in my short 41-year lifespan. This is just, I don't know why, but it bummed me out. When I was a kid, I didn't drink pop anymore. Sorry, I'm a Clevelander. I said pop. There you go. I don't drink soda anymore. When I was a kid, I did, but man, this really bugged me when they redesigned their logo. Whereas Coca-Cola, man, this thing is, when you think iconic logo, this might be one of the ones that comes to mind, right? And boy, I hope they never change this. That would be a real bummer. I think they would probably get a lot of backlash if they did. So, okay, moving on. Number 8, a great logo can easily fit into a circle or square for web use. Hey, it's 2023. Your brand is probably going to be on the internet and social media, including social media, I should say. So you do want to keep in mind that your logo should look strong, even when it's a profile picture or fav icon. Like, does your logo only work when it's really wide and horizontal, or can it be shrunk down to a square or a circle? Is it a vertical logo? Some people do that. How can it work on desktop and mobile devices? So here's an example through some arrows in there so you can see what I'm seeing. So you have this tiny little Facebook logo, then you have this regular horizontal Facebook logo. You got this really wide Coca-Cola, banner. What are these things called? Cover photos. You have these little tiny icons to the left all over the place over here. Those aren't really logos, but still. And you have this Coca-Cola logo in a circle here. And that's just a lot of logos. There's logos all over the place. You see them up in the bookmark bar of my browser back when I took this a year or 2 ago. And you just have logos all over the place. You got to make sure to think ahead, make sure that your logo is actually going to work in those different applications if you can. And sometimes a logo designer would say, hey, I'm only getting paid to design a horizontal logo here. You want to circle one, that's a whole nother project. I've heard logo designers say that. Okay, so be thinking about those kind of things. I'm not saying they're right or wrong, but I've heard it. Okay, number 9, can be animated. So, well, again, it's 2023, so people love video. Our company does some advertising, and man, we can tell you that anybody on our team would tell you that video is way more effective than a static image, which is way more effective than just plain old text. So can your logo be animated in case you want to do anything like that? Maybe you're going to be on YouTube and or television. Is there something that you can do that will work with your brand? This is a quick animation of our logo. Hopefully it actually comes through and hopefully you can see it. Just for whatever we need it, for TV, for social media, whatever. Think about that. Might not have to happen right away, but could be a really nice thing to do after you have your brand established. And there's different ways to animate a logo, completely different ways. Some of them are really, really subtle, but it's another good thing to research, really, if you're interested in that. Number 10, avoids design trends. Why would we say that? Anybody have an idea of why we would say avoid design trends, don't do it? Anybody want to raise their hand on that one? As we're waiting for the responses to come in, Eduardo, I think, is saying pass on that, which is good. That's smart. Thanks, Eduardo. So let's see here. And we have another. It's trendy and shorter term. Thank you, Eric. Absolutely. 100% I agree with you. If it's trendy, it might work extra well for the moment. And then all of a sudden it works almost in reverse as the years go on, right? Thanks guys for chiming in. So, you know, if you're paying, I see this when people pay junior designers or go on Fiverr to get a really quick and cheap logo. A lot of times they're like, oh, I'm just going to copy the current design trends. And in my humble opinion, you're setting yourself up to disappear. You're going to look dated in no time. A quick example would be, there's so many businesses that use like an X in the middle of their logo, like 5 years ago or something. Everybody was doing it. And now I feel like it's already on its way out, if not gone, in terms of popularity. And, you know, is your designer showing you something that feels fresh and original? So here's what I was talking about. This is a slide I whipped up a few years ago, but there's logos that look like this on the right. Like that might have been cool like a few years ago, or these hexagon logos. Everybody was doing those. Those might still kind of fly, I guess. But I think that either one of these are really trendy. And if you're relying on trends, then it might not be real cool in the not too distant future. That's all. This is a good example of that. Gap, everybody, you guys all are familiar with Gap. They have this iconic logo on the left. I mean, this was up there in terms of recognizable logos, at least here in the States. On the right, did you guys know that they just for a moment redesigned their logo to follow the Helvetica trend? Did you guys know about that? I'd love to hear you chime in if you did. Long story short, going with the Helvetica logo when minimal logos were just starting to explode, Gap wanted to be on that trend so bad that they said, well, maybe we'll take our blue square and size it down and just go with the Helvetica trend. And they thought this was just going to like float right into, you know, being one of those super cool popular logos. It got so much backlash. It must have been very bad when it comes to, you know, profit and loss, because they almost immediately went right back to the Gap logo. But I do remember getting a couple t-shirts that had this in the tag. I'm like, what is this? Is this the same company? I remember being at the Gap store and going like, because their t-shirts are so soft. I don't want to sound like a Gap evangelist or anything, but man, they do have some soft t-shirts, or at least they used to. But I thought, man, what is up with this logo? Is this the same company? I think I even asked an employee there. I was almost like offended by it. So be careful with that kind of stuff, right? Now here's another one, and I think this one is kind of, I almost want to say case closed. You know, this one, people didn't really have a choice but to say, okay, this is their new logo now. This is Instagram's logo now. But do you guys remember when they first switched over? Do you guys remember how big of freakouts everybody was having over this? Is it just me that remembers that? I mean, people were losing it, and it's so against it. I think I personally started to wonder about the company after they went with such a trendy logo. So I don't mean to beat up on them or anything. I'm just being honest, and like, I mean, we still use that company. We do advertising through that company, and they're very effective, and lots of people love them. I get it, but that logo redesign, a lot of people were pretty cringy about it. Kelsey agrees. Thanks, Kelsey. Okay, number 11 has appropriate use of typography. Fancy word for fonts. Everything about typography in your logo, from typefaces to weights, that's how thick or thin the letters are. Kerning, okay, that's the spacing that between the letters. And capitalization, think about when you're yelling at somebody in a text, you might do all caps. Or if someone's feeling really lazy or wants to look like they don't care, they might use all lowercase, right? Those can telegraph your brand style and your message. An edgier brand might, for example, incorporate weathered text and maybe an old English font or something like that, right? What's that one? There's a new can of water brand. I forget what it is. Death something. It's just a can of water, but they want to look so edgy. So they have this like beat up looking old English text. And really, it's just a can of water. But people, I think, like that brand. They go, oh, that's cool. They buy it, I think, because of the branding. And probably what the brand stands for. But anyways, don't mean to sound like a snot here at all. But does the choice of typography that you're using or potentially going to be using in your logo, does that really represent your brand? This is just an awning that's a couple blocks from our business, Euclid Beach Custard. I know I just mentioned them recently. To me, this is an old school font. It's actually Cooper is the name of that font. But that is it's really bold, but it's really friendly looking. That E almost looks like a smiley face to me. Just super friendly. Got it's very rounded and kind of playful. Well, that totally matches their brand. I personally would not be quick to say, "Ooh, I want to use Cooper in a logo." I would never cross my mind. But what they did, I think it makes sense. There's another local company that you've probably heard of, American Greetings, are based here in Cleveland. This to me says like sweet, sentimental, I love you, I care about you. That's a totally appropriate typeface. Nike, this is just, they're not local, but big and bold and loud and maybe fast. That's totally appropriate. Call of Duty, I've never played it, but man, that is an appropriate use of typography there. It looks like a stencil kind of a thing, so that looks kind of military-ish. It's bold, it's loud, it's tough. It's got the period, like boom, it totally works, right? Okay, enough said about that. Number 12, has appropriate use of colors. We're going to camp out for a moment on slide 12. I'll try not to camp out for too long here, but we could spend all day just on colors. I love the subject of colors and color psychology. If there's a certain color that you're wondering about with your brand, throw it out there and we'll make sure that we camp out on it for at least 30 seconds, okay? But we're going to otherwise zoom through quite a few colors and the emotions that they're known to evoke with people. Did you know that colors do that? Colors have a language too. They evoke emotional responses from people, right? There's a reason why stop signs are red. There's a reason why construction vests and cones are orange, okay? These colors, that's not an accident. Nobody just said, well, red's a color, here we go. No, there are certain psychological reasons these colors are chosen. You might want to use that edge, that advantage with your brand as well. I would highly recommend that. So the question for you here would be, have you researched the color psychology behind the colors that you're committing to, and do they align with your brand? So you want to use colors, obviously, that align with your core message, your logo and your material, your branding. It's going to evoke certain feelings to your, from your audience. And you want to make sure that those are reinforcing the messaging that you're trying to establish, right? Find colors that match what you want to communicate. Of course, the colors have to look good together too, but I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. And if you are like me and really want to dive into, hey, oh my gosh, I need to know about this. I need to know what the certain kind of green, what emotions this is going to evoke in our target audience, things like that. This is actually a picture of my favorite book here in our office on color. It's the Pantone Guide to Communicating with Color. I've had this thing for over 20 years. It's so good, and I still love it. That's how good it is. And no affiliation. I'm not going to send any affiliate links or anything like that. I'm just saying this is a great book. So Pantone Guide to Communicating with Color. If you're a reader and you want that, go get that on eBay or Amazon or wherever. It is awesome. And so the following list has taken some, not all, inspiration from this great book. Here's another excellent one. I got this in Toronto from David E. Carter, The Big Book of Color. Excellent, excellent book. Some inspiration taken from this one also. This is one I actually got back in college. So this is from the early 2000s. Color Harmony 2. I don't know what number they're up to now, but excellent stuff in there as well. So let's zoom through these. I'm going to go kind of fast. Otherwise, we're going to be here all day talking about individual colors. But bright red, for example, just because it's the first one, I'll take a second and talk about it. Bright red, that color is known to evoke certain emotions with people. And these are the emotions that it's known to evoke. Exciting, energizing, sexy. Well, that one doesn't apply here. Hot, that doesn't apply here either. Dynamic. Well, 3 of those totally work here. Okay, bright pink, exciting, happy, hot, energetic, attention getting. So you're going to see, these are all photos that I took down the street a year or 2 ago, just to show how these do totally match. Light pink, yeah, soft, romantic, sweet, tender, etc. Dusty pink, soft, cozy, subtle, dusky. Mauve, some of you have never heard that word before and may never again. Soft, subdued, quiet, sentimental. Burgundy, it's never been one of my favorite colors, but yes, it absolutely works with things that are supposed to be rich or elegant or refined. Fuchsia, bright, exciting, fun. Brick red, you can see it right in there. I probably could have used a better example, but earthy, strong, warm, country. Terracotta, which is like that kind of like that brick color here. Earthy, warm, wholesome, country, welcoming. Orange, fun, whimsical, childlike, happy, vital. Sunset, harvest, hot, peach. I'm not going to go through and read every single bullet point. You guys get the picture, but if there are any ones in particular you want me to camp out on or have a question about, just let me know. Light yellow, bright yellow. I mean, even the difference between those two, if I said it conversationally, like, hey, do you know the difference between light yellow and bright yellow? But there are such differences when it comes to what this color makes you think of and feel versus if you saw this one in an aisle, right? Greenish yellow, golden yellow, cream, earth brown, coffee color or chocolate color, red, purple, deep plum, blue, purple, lavender, grape, orchid, light blue, sky blue, teal blue, bright blue, navy. Navy is a super popular one. I mean, that's, I think, one of the most popular colors for brands because there are so many different types of emotions that color can evoke. Turquoise, aqua, light green, dark green, olive green, bright yellow green. To take a breath. And Emily, thank you for saying that. We'll send a copy of this to everybody. We'll also send the recording out. That way, if you're like, you went by that kind of fast. The only reason I'm not going slower is we would be here for an hour at least on just the colors alone. So these colors are just emphasizing the point of you do want to be intentional with the color you're using in your brand, right? Don't just like, well, I like purple. I actually work for a company like that. And the owner said, we like purple. So our logo is purple. And it didn't really, I don't think it really matched what our company did. Like, he's a great guy, great company and everything like that. But that part I wasn't sure on. So enough of the colors, right? Okay, on with number 13. Is it readable? What do you mean, is it readable? Can people easily read your logo? Can they see it easily? Can they read it easily when they're close up or when they're far away? Those are things to think about. This is about how snowy it is today, although we didn't take this photo today, but this is right down the street from our office. Now, to me, this restaurant, it's called Yours Truly. I can read that from a little ways away. I think they actually did a pretty great job So I'm not knocking that at all. But you want to make sure that your logo is readable. Here's one that my wife asked me about recently. We drove by a store recently, and my wife saw this on the left, and she said, "What the heck is that?" She has no filter. And I said, "Well, that's Lord and Taylor. That's a famous logo right there." She's like, "What? How can you read that?" And I said, "Yeah, they're known for having an illegible logo, and I don't know that they mind it a lot. Now, I know that at least temporarily, I don't know if they still go with this. If you know, go ahead and drop it in the chat. But the one on the right is what they ended up going to eventually. So I guess they got enough complaints, or maybe they just thought maybe we're just going to sell more clothing if people can actually read our logo. So they, at least for a while, if they don't still now, have that logo on the right as opposed to the one on the left. But the one on the left, in a weird way, is kind of famous just for how crazy it looks. So I remember the first time I saw that, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, what does that even say? Aesthetically, it looks kind of cool to me, I guess, in a way, but man, it is very hard to read. Anyways, enough said. If you are a race car person, or maybe even ever were even for like 5 minutes, you might recognize this immediately. Otherwise, you might have no idea what that says. That says Dale Jr. This is another business right down the street from us, the Spice and Tea Exchange. Now, I can read this here when it's right in front of me. This is a tea shop right down the street from our business. I can read this okay here, but when I'm walking by, and this is really large on the facade of their building, excuse me, I can't read it at all. And I'm sure they have really great stuff. I'm sure they do, and I don't mean to knock them, but I really have a hard time reading that logo. If it's at an angle, man, it's just really, really illegible. Okay, not trying to pick on anybody. I'm sure they're great. Go buy their stuff. All right. Does it pass the 5-second test? Well, what does that mean? What are you talking about, the 5-second test? So this is a good one. I love this test. You can use this with your website too, by the way. The message of your logo, what it conveys, should be quickly recognizable, because people are probably most of the time going to see your logo just for a moment, right? They're not going to sit there for like 30 seconds staring at it going like, I wonder what their core values are. I wonder what they sell. Probably not. They're going to see it, boom, they drove by it, that's it, right? Or they might see it for a few seconds. So that's where this test comes into play. Does it pass the 5-second test? So if someone looks at your logo, they have no idea who you are, what your company or organization is or does or anything. If they look at your logo for 5 seconds and then look away, would they know what your business is selling? I'm going to show you an example. So here we go. This is the sign outside of our office, and it's been updated since then. And I am going to go away now. Okay, so maybe that was 5 seconds-ish. Now, to me, I think none of the logos on our sign, our logo, another business's logo, and even some of the names, I have no idea what those are just looking at those. And if you did, let me know. I could use the encouragement. But I don't think those really pass the 5-second test, not to beat up on anybody here or me or anything. But I think that they could be better. They could be like this. Man, Burger King killed it with the 5-second test. You look at this thing for 1 second, you know what they do, right? Even if you've never heard of Burger King. Or Samaritan's Purse, Operation Christmas Child. Even if you've never heard of this organization, you already have an idea of what they do pretty quick. Last one, Match, with a heart and with this color and the fact that it's this kind of that type of typography, the tone that's in the typography and all lowercase. I think that's communicating a lot to me. Okay. All right. Number 15, last one. You guys ready? We're at the end here. Number 15, is it culturally relevant to your target audience? Okay, what are we talking about with that? Let's talk about this for a second here. So some business owners are closed off to advice regarding their brand identity. In other words, you don't want to be the kind of business owner that, if a designer's like, oh yeah, I don't know that speaks to our audience, and you're like, I don't care, I like it, I made it, or whatever. You don't want to do that, right? You want to think about is this appropriate for our target audience, right? Like, does it appeal to you? Awesome, it should. It really should, because you don't want to have a logo that you hate. Really, you don't. That is not going to be fun for you. But you also want it to be a logo that your target audience, that it would be appealing to them, right? Okay, so are you using, for example, colors that you like in your logo? Are you using colors that your audience would resonate with in your logo? So here is a picture, a candid picture of our senior developer hanging out casually talking to somebody in our office. He is the best developer I know. He is ultra geek. And I love him, and I've known him since the 90s. And if he was sitting right next to me, I would say that in the nicest way. I love him. He's great. But a certain type of logo would appeal to him, and a certain type of logo would not. This is a big computer store in our area, probably the biggest in Greater Cleveland, outside of like the Apple Store. And it's Micro Center. And I'm not saying that this is a beautiful logo. I'm also not saying that I hate this logo. I'm just saying that this logo is very much a good fit for our senior developer. He would be drawn to this logo. He's driving down the street. He'd go, ooh, yeah, let's go in there. Whereas my wife here, who's sitting here candidly, some other, whatever moment, whoever she's talking to, she would be repulsed by this logo. Okay, two people, same office. One would love this, one would hate this. She would love this logo right here. She absolutely loves this company, Madewell. Whereas our senior developer, this would not resonate with him. He would not like this. he would think this is some silly, girly, fashion kind of a thing. Like he is not drawn to that at all. Does that make sense? The point is, you want to make sure that when you're creating a logo, thinking about the typography and the lettering and any kind of imagery that you use, if you do use any imagery with your logo, that it's not just something that you like, but also resonates with your audience. Okay, that's it. So what's next? That kind of is we're going to wrap up here. But so once you've taken time and actually gotten through all of that and have created this big beautiful brand identity, you of course want to incorporate that, hopefully with consistency throughout your website and social media accounts. One of our newest clients, they have multiple businesses, but they have the same first part of their company name, and they have different logos everywhere you look. It is very, very confusing. You don't want to do that. You want to have continuity on your printed stuff and any other media you have. You want to have that consistency throughout your communications for clarity, for credibility, etc. But that, I think, wraps it up. So if anybody has any questions that they didn't already ask, we would love for you to chime in. We'll give you a minute. I'll catch my breath and take a drink of water while we wait for a question or two here. Eric says, great information. Thank you. You're very welcome, Eric. Thanks so much for chiming in. Really, really appreciate you. Emily's sharing a link to a survey there to let us know how we did, and also to let us know if you are interested in any other topics. This is obviously not the only webinar that SBDC is putting out there. There are a lot of webinars. And so if this was helpful to you, you might want to take a look and see if there are any other ones that would be helpful to you. Okay, Emily, we may have gotten through all the questions just kind of as we went. So if you want to take the baton for me, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah, so if you could fill out that survey from us, that really helps us out. Also wanted to make sure that you all know, like I said at the beginning, small business development centers, we offer no cost advising for small businesses to meet with advisors. So Zach, even though he said, obviously Cleveland, he mentioned Cleveland a lot. Our office is located in Northern California. So you can, if you're in our area in Northern California, you can sign up for services with us and meet with Zach directly. Or you can find your local SBDC, and I put both of those links in the chat, so check those out. And then Zach, can you go to kind of the final slide with yeah, there we go. So there's some more information on how you can reach us directly, our social media pages. We do post stuff to our YouTube channel as well, if you want to check any of those videos out. But yeah, just let us know if you ever have any questions or want to know what types of advising that we have. We're always happy to help out. And then yeah, if you have, I mean, we have some time. So if you have more questions to ask of Zach, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll get to those.
Yeah, looks like a couple other people did chime in at the very end there. Thanks so much, Emily. So Eduardo says, great talk, thanks. Any need to trademark or protect logo? I think, in my humble opinion, there is not a right or wrong, but more pros and cons to registering service mark, trademark, and there are differences between those. And we have a really good webinar that I didn't do, but I think David Walker probably did because he is our resident expert on that. He put out such a good webinar on that. So if you go to the SBDC Shasta-Cascade YouTube page and or reach out to Emily for a link to it, but you could probably just Google what I just said, Shasta-Cascade SBDC. He has such a good talk on that. And instead of me trying to, give you a 10-second answer, he kind of unpacks it for probably like an hour. And not in a boring way, like in a really helpful, informative kind of way. And I think that you would probably be able to be equipped by the end of that to make a decision on whether you would want to proceed with registering, trademarking, etc. So hope that's helpful. Cool. Yep, you got it. And then Keisha says you did excellent. I would like to see a webinar on franchising. Emily, do you know if we have any webinars on franchising? Because I don't know that we do. Oh, Emily just shared the trademark video. Thanks so much for doing that.
Yeah, well, we don't have anything on franchising that we've done thus far.
No, sorry about that, Keisha. Okay, that probably wraps it up. If you guys have any other questions, though, feel free to shoot us an email or give us a call, and happy to talk with you further. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day, and thanks so much for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you, Zach.
Thanks, Emily. Okay, bye for now.